Ooh, welcome back to the BDGE Dynasty Fantasy Football Channel. Today, I am joined by just Adam. We killed Andrew. He just yaps too much, so we had to get him. Off the show.
We miss him.
I do miss Andrew. We kind of need him there as like the third guy to just be chipping in, so we can be like enough out of you.
As soon as he starts talking.
So I'm interested to see how this dynamic shapes out, if I end up bullying you or vice versa.
The tree's in the middle of us.
The tree's basically the third person in this fucking show. Today we are going to recap everything that happened in day 2 of the 2024 NFL Draft. We ripped day 1, which at this point has been our most popular video on the channel. So welcome to anyone new that kind of subscribed. Based on that, go check that one out first. We talked through every fantasy relevant player, what we're doing with our Dynasty rookie rankings. We're going to do the same thing today with everything that happened last night in rounds 2 and rounds 3. Now, you streamed the entire round 2 and 3. Give me the energy of that. Was it like a fun fantasy stream? Because I guess I honestly didn't pay attention to the entire round 2 and 3. I woke up this morning really early to like recap everything and go through my rankings and stuff like that. I was a little underwhelmed by, I think, the amount of players that were picked and the players in particular that were taken. Yeah,
especially as the day went on, it was there was a lot of non-fantasy relevant players being drafted. I mean, we started electric with Keon and Ladd.
That was it. Like, they were the first 2 picks, and then you didn't have another skill player go off for another 14 or so picks.
I also feel like there was no way to live up to the
That's
chaos.
A lie. Sorry, Jalen Polk went 4 picks later, and then it was another 15. But go on.
And then Adonai finally came off the board at 52. Tough scene, huh?
That's a tough scene.
What do you think of that? Actually, that's where I want to start.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be realistic here. I love the player, but we've seen good players go into spots that aren't great. Indy, one, they have the one, right? They have their Michael Pittman already, just gave him that extension. Secondly, it's no secret that that's going to be a run-heavy offense with A-Rich and Jonathan Taylor. So I think the hopes are dashed a little bit. I redid all of my rankings this morning. Adonai was a big dropper for me. So Adonai is now my 16th player off the board. He is my wide receiver 8 now.
Not great.
No, it's not great. I just I'm trying to see like an upside situation here for him, and I just he's not going to outplay Michael Pittman.
He's not going to be the one.
He's not going to be the one.
Can he be the 1B?
Sure. I think he will be the 1B. And that's the other. Josh Downs is pretty fucking cool too.
Well, that is what I was going to say is I think
he's my least worrying part of the situation overall.
Okay.
Yeah, Josh Downs for sure. I like him, but like if Adonai is going to be the guy that we think Adonai is, then he's going to overtake Josh Downs. The problem is like how many pass attempts is A-Rich really going to throw per game?
I think that's the thing is even if A-Rich, let's say A-Rich is actually much better than we expected as a passer, which he showed glimpses of.
Sure.
There's not many quarterbacks out there that support 3 people in general in fantasy anyway.
No. I guess, okay, so here's another situation that just popped into my head. I was like, yeah, you look at like Jalen Hurts, and like Jalen Hurts has never thrown for 4,000 yards, right? Like good fantasy quarterback, those for 35, 3,600 yards. But then I'm also like, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both still eat. You know, so maybe there is a world where A-Rich is kind of like Jalen Hurts. Should I move him back up?
I just think my thing is it's going to be one of those 3. I don't think is going to be that fantasy relevant, but I think that 2 could very well be.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Adonai. I think it's going to be Pittman. I think they tried to do this with Alec Pierce. They wanted a real field stretcher, and Alec Pierce was never really that guy. Adonai Mitchell is a much more realistic guy for what they're trying to do in their offense. Again, dude who ran a sub 4.4, 205 pounds. Again, look at Matt Harmon's RP of him, like 84th percentile man, 84th percentile versus press. Like he's a legit, really, really good receiver. The situation overall, I mean, it's when you look at the details, situation is bad. Overarching though, it's like an offense on the rise that will probably just continue to get better and better. If A-Rich is good, they're going to score a lot. Like maybe we're overthinking a little bit, but I just think based on how many good landing spots there were for receivers like McConkey to LA to Keon to fucking Buffalo, even Worthy, who I don't like, but going to KC in the first round is start to open your mind a little bit, you know?
I have all those guys ahead. I've got Adonai at 203 right now in my ranks.
Okay.
I think it'll be interesting to see. I think A-Rich is absolutely a winner though, coming out of this draft. And if A-Rich hits, he's going to be the most insane quarterback we've ever seen for fantasy football.
Yeah, he's going to be pretty fucking sweet. It's going to be like Cam Newton
with 4.4 speed.
Yeah, with better weapons too. Cam never really had legit. I mean, Greg was always good. Obviously, Kelvin was in and out his rookie year, sophomore year, but like you never looked at the Carolina Panthers and were like, oh, he's got like his real solid receiving core. Where I feel like the Colts are doing a really good job of building that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about his best weapon. You're probably saying is a tight end. Not that Greg Olsen wasn't him.
Chill.
You know, seventh floor.
Chill with G-Reg. Chill with G-Reg, the third leg over there.
Let's go, baby. But, no, but I think people forget he was old, but Steve Smith for a hot second.
I was going to bring that up too. He was on the latter part of his career, but still good when he got to overlap with Cam a little bit.
Yep.
Let me ask you this. Yesterday's video, we made our rookie rankings just based on the 14 guys that went in the first round. How many players now do you have jumping the guys that were first rounders? Like how many of the players that were picked last night in round 2 and 3 are now above some of those guys that were in your initial 14?
Yeah, my lowest of the whole group is currently Pearsall, and I need to see something happen with Debo or Ayuk. Otherwise, this is insane.
I have Pearsall as my second to last one in that group. He is my number 17 overall. I have Leggette.
You have him ahead of Leggette then?
I have Leggette at 19.
Gut's going to be so crushed to edit this.
Yeah, he hates Leggette. And then it goes to Carolina.
I think he might have convinced himself over the last 48 hours.
Oh, he's coping so hard right now. Hates Caleb Williams because of the trade. He's so going to edit all this out. He's so pissed. Yeah, Legette's my 19 right now. Goes to Carolina, and I'm just not sure, like, the identity of the offense they're building, right? With Mingo basically going the same exact spot last year. They're similar players. They do bring in Deontay Johnson, so he's going to be the target guy.
Brooks?
Jonathon Brooks. I mean, if we want to jump right into him. First running back off the board. He goes, 46th overall?
46, yep.
Yeah, 46 overall to Carolina. He was, I think, our consensus RB1 prior to the draft going off. He's the most talented running back in this draft class, in my opinion.
For sure.
Coming off the ACL, so I don't know how heavily we see him involved in the first, like, half of the season. I did a rookie running back, like, landing spot tier video right before the NFL draft, and Carolina was sneaky in. I had a GOAT tier of Dallas and the Chargers. Neither of them went with running back yet. And then I had an A tier, and I want to say Carolina might have snuck into the B tier. And I think when you looked at Carolina, you're like, the team is kind of terrible. They already have, like, Miles Sanders and Chuba. Chuba's deal is done at the end of this year. Miles Sanders, there's just no chance. His deal has another year on it, but they can get out of it at the end of this year. For sure. Jonathon Brooks is there to be the guy after 2024, without a doubt. And by 100%. That time, you got to think the Carolina situation is a little bit fixed.
You would hope. Gut's going to be in shambles if it isn't. But no, I think with they made some offensive line adjustments this offseason through free agency. I think point, yeah. They, I mean, say what you want about the receivers. We'll see what happens. They've drafted some spotty profiles, I guess you'd say. Mm-hmm. But the offense, first of all, it's impossible to be. I shouldn't say this, Gut. It's very hard to be as bad as they were last year. They should be able to take a step forward, and I think Jonathon Brooks, being super young, and they have Chuba, they have Miles Sanders to kind of let him come along slowly. But it's kind of crazy. It's weird. And running backs, I want to look at them in a short window, but I feel
Brooks is only 20 years old too. I
feel like I know if I'm taking him that I'm really betting on the 2025 season.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got to ask yourself, are you okay with that? For me, I would say yes, because I think they're going to be on the upswing. I think a running back's peak is something that is hard to replicate in fantasy football. If he was 22, 23, I'd be looking at this a little differently. Again, 20 years old, so by the time he's fully healthy, he's going to be 21 years old, and I think it'll be a little bit better of a situation. Like you said, they did bring in some offensive linemen. They put some money where their mouths were, brought the big boys up front. So I think it'll be a little bit of an improved situation. Not, privy to it on any sort of redraft scale. But where do you have him in your dynasty rankings now? I actually have him 14.
Do you?
202. I have him above Michael Penix and Adonai Mitchell.
Oh, we may have to.
I love Brooks. Like I'm a
really,
really
we were
going
to bring his name up ever again, but since we went there, we may have to.
I mean,
I got him at 206 right now, and that's not. That's that. If you're hearing that and say I'm too low, you could be right. I just personally think there's too many receivers that got good enough draft capital. It's not a knock on Brooks as much as it is to me. This is going to be, from a value standpoint, leaps and bounds the best class that we've seen for what these guys are going to be valued in startups and in rookies right now.
I feel good pretty much about every single player within the first 24 picks. Maybe 22 is kind of that cutoff, 22, 23. But if I drafted any of the players that I have in my top 22 rankings right now, I can make an argument that I feel really good about any of them, which is usually not the case.
No, I mean, okay, so last year you ended up, if you took Sam Laporta, hitting a lottery ticket.
Mm-hmm.
But we were drafting 3 tight ends in like the top 20-ish picks, 24.
Was it Kincaid, Laporta,
and Mayer? Mayer was going ahead of Laporta a lot of times.
Kind of hit. Kincaid was obviously a hefty price, but
for sure. My only point is that like a guy like Ben Sinnott is
he's my
you can make a
27.
case. You can make a case you can't even take him till the 3rd round.
Yeah, I have him at 27. I wouldn't be taking him until the 3rd round.
And I'm in agreement. I'm not taking him till I'm at 26.
Yeah.
But the point is, to me, that's just shows you the depth of this class, and to get this many receivers with top, if you want to call it Adonai at 52, top 52 draft capital, it doesn't make sense.
No,
along with 6 quarterbacks.
Yeah, and that's what makes this class so juicy is that like half of the first round is just taken up with QBs, so it's like all the skill players start to drop to the point where you can get the RB1 in the class at 14, 15, 16, 17. Bringing us to the second RB drafted in this class,
Trey
Benson goes
Trigger
66th. Trey. It was the second pick of the 3rd round. A lot of people really like Trey Benson. He has some really high upside traits. He's hella explosive, ran a 4.39. He's got the size to be a 3-down back. And he lands in Arizona. Now, Arizona, I think, might have been in my A tier for rookie running back landing spots because, as it has been for the last 5 consecutive years, James Conner's on his way out. He's never really been on his way out, but it feels like he's on his way out because the contract is actually up after this year. Trey kind of fits that mold perfectly. Going into an offense that's obviously on the rise, Kyler coming back, Marv coming back. Any chance that do you have Trey Benson over Brooks in your rankings?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And
do you think that's going to be a thing? You think people are going to do that?
I wouldn't be. I think it's possible. To me, it's like, okay, Trey Benson's healthy right away, and the offense in Arizona, you could make the case is set to explode.
Yeah.
But I definitely think this is not a good thing for James Conner, but I don't know if Conner's not just gonna go away right away.
Yeah, I guess the question then is like, if we're looking at Jonathon Brooks as a 2025 play, do we also have to do that with Trey Benson then?
Probably, but I think that Trey Benson, you could see if he's playing well, unseat James Conner to be like a league winner in 24.
Yeah, that's. I also think like end of season could be blast off time for Trey Benson, where Brooks, I don't really think there's ever a period in 2024 where they actually unleash him just based on the injury.
Yeah, it would be. I'd be surprised if it was like Jonathon Brooks is the league winner in 2024.
Yeah.
Not that he's not talented enough, just coming off the injury and the situation they have in Carolina.
Yeah, I got Benson down at pick 20, so that would be like the 208, 209 range.
208, yep.
And even down there feels like in a normal class he'd probably be going at like the 204, 205.
Facts.
But it's like Trey Benson is a 3rd-round running back. I still have Xavier Leggette right above him. 1st-round wide receiver Ricky Pearsall 2 spots above him. 1st-round receiver Jalen Polk, like borderline 1st-round capital, right? Like 5 picks in. So
yeah,
at this point, it's like you're getting a really good player, Trey Benson, who has crazy upside at the running back position all the way down at pick 18, 19, 20. And realistically, listen, if you love Trey Benson, he's one of those guys that, you know, a lot of people in Dynasty don't really like get into the grit in terms of like watching film or like getting into the numbers. I could see you watching Trey Benson, seeing those explosion plays and be like, I love this motherfucker. If you like Trey Benson like that and you want to jump up and take him 13, 14, 15, I don't really got a problem with it because that's how we play Dynasty, you know?
If he hits, I think the thing with him is questionable reads sometimes, and like that may scare certain people off, but what I see on tape with him is if he hits and you put him in an offense that could be explosive, like, all right, this is C4, you know, like it could explode. He really could be a difference maker at the running back position.
And I wonder too. I have no study of this. I have no idea if this is how football works. But there's that. People talk about like the mobile quarterback being a huge problem solver for running backs, right? And because if you're a linebacker, you have to make sure the quarterback's not running out of there. And I actually wonder, now that I'm thinking about it, this could be a huge help for a dude like Trey Benson, who, you know, I broke down his film in a video a few weeks back, and one of my concerns was that he has some questionable vision, right? He tries to bounce things outside, or he doesn't see the holes very well. But I do wonder if having a guy like Kyler now kind of like mitigates that problem, because if he's reading the wrong hole and he's running into linebackers, maybe that linebacker is actually keen on watching Kyler. Whereas if you don't have a mobile quarterback, they're only focusing on the running back. So maybe that problem is a little bit more mitigated, and that brings something that kind of cancels out some of the downside of Trey Benson. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with that point. I think that if you're a guy like Trey, also it's going to simplify what he's asked to do in a way. Like in Kyler, I think Kyler is another person just like A-Rich. Huge winner, man, overall.
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine the price that Kyler was at to start off. When we started this channel, Kyler felt like such a value, and I wonder how long that feels this way. He's set to explode. Really,
not much longer. Yeah, as long as he is like fully healthy, there's no reason he can't be back to that like 20, 23, 24, 25 point per game quarterback.
All right, let me ask you this: before we tear into Blake Corum going to the wrong LA team, everybody's saying Chargers. Nah, Rams, battering Ram. Most surprising pick to you yesterday, if you had to say, after you've had a chance to digest and look through it, sit with it, or do you have one? Or is there just a ton?
I'm going to be honest. I actually kind of feel like, there's ones that I dislike or really like that might have been surprising, but I do think Blake Corum, going off of that, might have been the most surprising pick to the Rams.
Go the lob.
Just because Blake and Kyron are like
the same.
They're the same fucking player.
Dude, imagine, like, that's the thing about it. Okay, we talk about Trey Benson. It's such a good transition point. If they would have drafted a guy like Trey, you're like, all right, I get Blake Corum is going to make the right play every time, and it's amazing to me. It feels so like Sean McVay ain't over the Akers thing. Like this,
you blame him?
Maybe. Another Florida State guy too.
Yeah.
But Blake Corum is, I think, the worst with this type of draft capital. Like the worst thing that could have happened to Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams, while it was exciting, was his opportunity share was unrealistic.
Always unrealistic.
And that's versus the entire NFL.
Yeah.
He's getting like 82% opportunity share. You don't draft Blake Corum in round 3 for that to continue to be the case. Kyren, I think, is the biggest loser of yesterday for sure.
Yeah, I still think he's going to give Kyren McVay operates in the way that, like, once he trusts a running back, I think he's cool giving them as much work as they can handle, which is what he did with Kyren last year. Mm-hmm. The level of work that he gave him is insane levels of work. So I feel like they needed to add to it. I kind of think Kyren can still be really fucking good this year.
Okay. What does that look like?
I'd probably still be comfortable drafting. Whereas, like, Kyren, I think you could have made the case prior to this draft. If they didn't take a running back till, like, fucking round 6 or something, I think you could have made the case that Kyren was like a top 5.
For sure.
Redraft pick this year at the running back position. Top 5, 7, whatever you want to say.
Easy.
I would say I'm not going to be, like, overly dramatic about it, but he's going to drop down to maybe RB 15 to 18 in that range.
That's a massive dip, though.
It's a massive dip, yeah. But I don't want to completely write him off. Like, I don't think Blake is going to take his job. I think Kyren has already proven that he's, like, going to be really, really, really good in that offense. And I wonder if they're just like, we have literally no depth at the running back position. They had, like, Zach Evans. They had all these,
Ronnie
like,
Rivers.
Yeah, they have all these, like, scrubs that are, like, fake name dudes. And Blake Corum gives them a little bit of depth there. So
I agree. It's
a tough read.
I just think for me, the problem with it is it's not a good case scenario for either one of these guys.
Yeah.
We only got 4 running backs come off the board in the first 2 days. And one feels like, why did this happen?
All right, so let's think back then, because I don't think we really, like, researched it or prepared for it. This has happened before, I think, where it's like, they have a good running back. They just took another running back with draft capital that kind of, like, makes the other guy redundant. How about Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet last year? That didn't work.
I was actually going to say that's exactly what it feels like.
That didn't work out great for either of them for fantasy.
I mean, Kenneth Walker, though, at least if you're going to make the Kyren case, Kenneth Walker was – Charbonnet never unseated him, and it was never even a conversation.
And I think that's probably what we can – and Kenneth Walker was kind of, like, dealing with injuries all throughout last year, so it was really tough to get a read of when his big games were going to be or, like, when you could really trust him. That's why I feel like Kyron's in the same situation where he's earned the starting role, and he'll keep it as long as he stays healthy. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to, like, put him on the fade list.
Yeah, he's the day 1 starter.
Yeah.
I guess I think for me it's like the Blake Corum doesn't make wrong decisions. He's going to do everything he's asked to do at least to an above average level. Mm-hmm. That's what makes him – so I just feel like he's not going to be someone that is completely sitting.
No. So
it just caps the upside of Kyren Williams, I think, is the reality. That's all it is for me.
Yeah, it's a weird, unfortunate pick, but Sean McVay's a madman, so I respect it.
pivoting here. What about MarShawn Lloyd now going to Green Bay?
Yeah, tough to get excited about the landing spot with Jacobs there. I think Jacobs is pretty much locked in for 2 years.
Yep.
As a starter there. Resigned A.J. Dillon. I don't know that it means much. I think Lloyd, maybe they look at Lloyd as like an explosive part of that backfield, right? Like Jacobs is not an explosive guy. Dillon is the opposite of explosive. So they need a little bit of a spark plug there.
Yeah, Dillon's on his way out after this year, I think.
For sure. So, I mean, I like Lloyd. Lloyd's like a kind of down-tier version of Trey Benson, where a little bit questionable as an actual runner, but gives you a lot of explosion and like cool playability.
For sure.
He drops down. He's my 24th ranked player. So that's where I'm saying like Blake Corum was number 22 for me. Where I'm like anyone 22 and above, I feel pretty good with. Malachi Corley.
I have Corum at 22 and I have MarShawn at 23.
Okay, I have Corley at 23, MarShawn Lloyd at 24. So it's like that's when you get to the spot where I'm like, I kind of like Lloyd as a player. He's got the upside traits there. He did some good things, and I think he brings good things to an NFL team.
Yeah.
But as for like where it fits into the Packers for me were in like the D tier, I think, for running back landing spots, and a lot of people argued that they should be higher up. They should be like a C tier running back landing spot situation. I get it. Like the Packers are definitely on their way up as an offense, and you want pieces attached to it. I just don't know. I kind of feel like they're just going to ride Jacobs for as long as they can, similar to like Joe Mixon in Cincinnati, where it's always like, oh, he's on his way out, or James Conner in Arizona, one more year. Let's just get guys that we trust around these like younger, Christian Watson, Jaden Reeds, like these younger Jordan Loves. Like, let's give this offense stability with like veterans, and I feel like Jacobs kind of brings that to it. So
Fair.
I don't know how much playtime we're going to get from MarShawn Lloyd.
Yeah, I don't expect him to be someone that gets a lot of run early, but I think that if he's end of the second, early third, you take your shot just because you never want things to happen. But if something was to happen to Jacobs, MarShawn Lloyd could end up in that offense taking a huge step. So I view it as like an any running back on a 53, except he's got a little more juice if he gets the opportunity.
Yeah.
I think that the next group of guys we talk about is not quite as exciting, but the rest of the receivers coming off the board. And then if you're going to try to pick your spot, which ones are you shooting your shot on?
Well, let's we didn't even talk about ladder Keon, did we?
Yeah, we did, but we ended up we didn't dive deep enough.
I think we should jump.
We can go back. We can dive in.
Let's go back up to the top of the wide receivers, because this is kind of like the really intriguing, meat of the class here. So you got Ladd, who is the 34th pick. He goes to LA, and Keon Coleman, the pick before him, 33rd pick, goes to Buffalo. Both spots. It's so interesting this year. Like the elite quarterbacks, like the best quarterbacks in the league, just don't have number one targets. So it's like whoever slots in there immediately is going to be given so much work. We so rarely see something like that happen. So Keon, who's extremely polarizing as a prospect, goes to Buffalo. They traded back a few times. They felt like we don't really care for Xavier Worthy, so here you go. Here's the pick, KC. Go get your man. Same thing with Carolina at 32. We don't really care for Xavier Leggette, so here's a man. We'll take Keon. Keon, I think, is interesting with Josh Allen because he's a guy that gives Josh Allen like a huge catch radius, where Josh Allen can kind of just fucking sling it up there and let him like catch the ball. And Keon Coleman is arguably the best in the class at just like going up and fucking getting the ball and being a high point guy. And I like the pick. I don't know if I truly believe that Keon can be like a superstar one at the next level.
Is he a first round pick in this class for you now, or no? Second round.
Keon is my 112 right now.
Damn, 112 here too.
Yep, Keon jumped over Xavier Worthy.
I would love to have Andrew here right now, because I know he was more of a Keon like opposer, but I want to know what Andrew's take is on this situation, because I do feel like it's on paper a great situation. I could see people saying that, like, if we put him in the big slot role, isn't that what Kincaid kind of does too?
Yeah. Do you think he's going to play the big slot role? I kind of think he's going to have to be forced outside.
That's exactly why I said if, because I really don't know. Keon, for me, if you put him outside, I think he still could end up hitting, but it's a lot more risky for what he does.
I agree. Like the landing spot's great. I just think what they're going to now ask him to do immediately scares me a little bit.
That's actually my concern. And that's why I said if they put him in the big slot role, I hope at least he gets, if they put him outside, it's not all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're going to have to get creative. I do think it gets tough because, like, you're not going to put Dalton Kincaid outside 70% of the time. It's just not how they work with tight ends. So It's definitely a little bit of a risky landing spot, but I like the player enough, and obviously attached to Josh Allen is such a sexy thing to have.
Absolutely.
You got Ladd above him or below?
I actually have. Let me just check. I think I have Ladd below, but it's not. It's 112, 201.
Give me your 11 to 14.
Okay, so I got Worthy at 111 still. Okay. I just think that this is a value I can't fade because of the community is going to just go crazy for Worthy. Then I got 112 Keon, 201 Ladd. I got 202 Penix, 203 Adonai, 204 Leggette, 205 Polk.
Okay. I have Ladd at 11. So I put Ladd 11, Keon 12, Worthy at 13.
Okay.
So, I mean, Ladd as this primary pass catcher in this offense, I'm just thinking about that Chargers team, man. Like, they let go of Eckler. They let go of Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. Josh Palmer is going to be a primary outside guy. Like, what are the chances Ladd does not lead this team in targets this year? I feel like it's relatively low.
I would agree. And I think if he doesn't, that's just problematic for the entire offense.
Yeah, like Ladd, I think, is going to eat out of the gate, and he's not just a slot receiver. Like, this dude is
explosive.
He's really good route runner, right? He ran a 4.39 or something like that.
Yeah, he just broke 4.4. Yep.
Yeah, so this was probably one of my favorite picks in the entire draft from like a position fit, and I'm like, I don't really want to overthink this. Like, this is about to be Herbert's one for at least a year, maybe 2 years. I think Ladd's. I can almost see him having and maybe this is really lofty expectations, maybe a mini version of this, but like, you remember what Jalen Waddle was as a rookie? Ooh. Jalen Waddle caught, 100 passes?
Force-fed 140 targets.
Right. Like, his yards per reception number, it was like 10.5 or something like that. But Ladd McConkey, I could see him having a similar role just because there's nobody else in that fucking offense. I could see him catching 85 passes as a rookie, and that is like you could play that guy in your fantasy lineup right
for
away.
Sure. I mean, the part about this class that is so tough is that when I say that I have Ladd at the 201, that's just because this class is so damn deep.
Yeah.
Like, if you put Ladd at the Chargers landing spot with this situation you just described in the 23 class, he's being talked about probably ahead of JSN.
Yeah.
Like, just think about that for a second.
Yeah. That's pretty
Let
wild.
that marinate. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
This is a great problem to have if you have any picks in the second round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's why I feel so much more like the way that we just talked about it. It's almost like that's why I have Ladd above Keon, because it's like there's so much hesitancy from us around Keon, even though we like the landing spot. And I'm like, I just feel really good about Ladd.
Yeah, I so I have him in the same tier. I think that the more I'm thinking about it too, I'm not going to switch them, but I think that both these teams are moving to a much more run-heavy scheme.
Yeah.
So that probably caps the upside a little bit, but I think both of them are in a position to eat. I do think that Ladd is more likely to secure just an insane amount of targets than Keon does.
Same. And that's what I'm thinking too, because it's like, okay, the obvious narrative is like they're just not going to throw the ball in LA, but in a not throwing the ball in LA season, first of all, like, their starting running back is what, Gus Edwards and JK with one leg. Like,
they brought both of them hurt running backs over.
What is like the worst case scenario in terms of passing volume for Justin Herbert this year in a low volume offense?
Yeah, so I was going to say, like, last year we can look at the Titans, and historically we can look at the Titans. They're throwing 494, 550.
Yeah, I mean, you're not. Yeah, like, Justin Herbert's not dipping down to that number.
You don't think so?
No, absolutely fucking not. That's like, who were the Titans quarterbacks last year?
Will the Thrill.
And Tannehill.
Mayo and Coffee and Tannehill.
Yeah, like, Justin Herbert's not getting the volume that Tannehill got. I think, like, the worst case scenario is Herbert throws the ball like 530, 540 times.
That's fair.
And for if Ladd sees an 18% target share, that's going to be over 100 targets.
For sure. I think Ladd's probably penciled into 110-ish at a floor, unless he's horrible for.
Yeah.
If he's under 100 targets, like, that is a monumental disappointment for
I mean, listen, had they kept Keenan or Mike Williams or had another pass catcher or, like, anything, if they kept anything, I'd be like, okay, maybe the pass volume's a concern because there is another player who's going to get a lot of targets there. Mm-hmm.
There's not much.
The floor is so high.
There's not much to poke holes in. Like, I like Ladd McConkey's game. I like the draft capital. He checks the box. The team, regardless of being low volume, is desperate for wide receiver. There's not much to knock with
okay, if you're at the end of the first round, early second round in rookie drafts, do you have like a preference in terms of strategy, like floor versus? I kind of feel like the last bunch of years has given us a choice between like dudes who just monumentally bust and dudes who like go on to be great players.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like it's the years of the Jalen Ragers versus the Justin Jeffersons. It's like those decisions feel like they happen every single year. And I start to like lean towards, let me just get a player that I feel real comfortable about, that I feel is going to be good.
Ladd, I think, okay, if I look at this and say which one is least likely to bust, I'm going to say it's Ladd. I think Keon, though, the thing about Keon to me is that if he starts slow, like he's polarizing. And I think when you know that, part of the hesitancy is if he starts slow or doesn't have good games, people that hate him are going to come out. And Andrew's going to be like, I told you about Keon. There's going to be so many people that start saying Keon is not that good of a prospect. We saw this with some of his stuff, the metrics with reception perception. So he probably has lower to fall. But I think Keon, if he makes, just think about those passes you saw him catch at Florida State that you'll never unsee. Yeah. He gets 3 catches like that from George Pickens, very similar. Like you get some crazy highlight catches.
This actually made me
nuts.
go back to like that draft class, George Pickens. It was like George Pickens or Jahan Dotson. You were kind of making that decision. And right now that seems like George Pickens is the Keon Coleman. Jahan Dotson is the Ladd McConkey in a sense. 16th overall, safe player, really good route runner. That obviously didn't work out.
I like that. Yeah, I do think Ladd is unlikely to bust, but I just don't. Here's my thing with Ladd, actually, if I'm being honest. I don't know. Do you think he could step into a top, like, do you think he could become a top 15 receiver in Dynasty eventually if all things hit?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he can't. To me, it's harder for me to picture that, I guess.
I just think he can. I think he can be an easy, like, 80, 85 catch guy, 8 touchdown guy.
Okay.
Like 80 for 1,100, 8 touchdowns. I don't think is like crazy just based on volume.
Yeah, I think at the end of the second or late first here in this class, it's different than most because normally at that spot you're like, all right, I want to get a guy that's going to give me value. Both of these guys have,
for sure,
insane value for where they're going. I think it's funny. It's kind of like the night. These 2 picks come off the board, and you're like, this is going to be just an insane day 2 again. Was underwhelming from that point, but you couldn't have asked for much better. Both of these really good quarterbacks needed weapons, and that's the other thing I like to see is that if I'm going to draft a guy in that range, I like to know that he has a really good thrower throwing the ball to him. That to me means the floor is not going to be terrible.
Facts, yeah. That's why I feel really good with those 2 up there. I guess regardless of which one you take, is like you're always going to be attached to X
big time. Where you go to like you start talking about these other guys. You go to Malachi Corley, and I like Rodgers, but they got he's getting really old. I mean, you got Garrett Wilson's there. There's a lot of more question marks for me about a lot of these receivers in this class that were drafted. I'm curious for you if there's any ones that stand out that you're like excited about though.
So I'm sneaky. Yeah, there's 2 guys, and it is I think the next 2 receivers maybe off the board there. Jalen Polk, who also went in the early second round to New England. He was a guy that I was pretty high on early on in the process. I think I had him as like my wide receiver 7 after watching all the film. I think he's another very high floor player. I don't think he'll be like the one, but again, New England's like building their offense from the ground up right now. They're bringing Drake May. Jalen Polk is a guy that's very much like the opposite of what they have there in Demario Douglas and those types of guys, the speedy slot receivers.
Yep.
I mean, he performed pretty well at the combine. Like his athleticism was better than I thought it was going to be, and he's a bigger body dude that can run routes across the middle and be like a T. Higgins type where he's a good possession receiver. So I think he's a high floor guy just because you're not like enamored with the name. I don't think he's a guy you skip over. And then Jermain Burton, bro. Like Jermain Burton is a really, really intriguing pick here from Cincinnati because we don't know what's happening with T. Higgins. At this point, it looks like he's going to play out in Cincinnati for this year. I don't know, but Jermain Burton, I think most people in at least the Dynasty community, and sort of myself included, got put onto him when Matt Harmon dropped his reception perception on Jermain Burton, and this motherfucker was really good against press, like very high percentiles, where I don't think most people's eyes were kind of open to the idea that he's actually more than just like a speedster out of Alabama, but this motherfucker can run routes, and I think he fits into that offense really, really well.
I mean, yeah, since he's a good landing spot, especially with the uncertainty and what's going to happen with the offense moving forward outside of obviously Jamar Chase. Jermaine Burton is interesting to me, a name that was really high in Devy for a while, and then it really was seeming like cooling down. All of a sudden to just go to Cincy in round 3, and it felt like life was thrown back into him all of a sudden for sure.
It was like Alabama just didn't perform the way that an Alabama offense typically does this year.
Yes.
And he's also not built like the typical Alabama receiver. So people are like, it kind of feels maybe systemy or gimmicky, or like, of course, Bama's going to have one good receiver, but he's not, built like the ones that are typically coming out of there where they're like reaching for fucking Heisman trophies kind of thing.
For sure. Where do you have him, actually? I'm curious. This is crazy because this speaks to the depth of the class, in my opinion. Now, like 80, the draft capital definitely doesn't mean that he's a sure thing, but given the offensive situation, I really like it for him.
I got Jermain Burton at 21. He's right behind Trey Benson, and he's right in front of Blake Corum.
Interesting. Okay. See,
he's the next receiver after, like, Leggette is 19, so he's a first-round receiver. Burton's, like, the first receiver in the really early top 40 picks that go up in my rankings.
So you prefer him to Roman?
Easily.
Okay. Here's my thing. Roman
very off Rome.
I'm not. I've been very anti Roman Wilson. It is like the Pittsburgh landing spot to me changes so much because it's like, dude,
that's the only.
As a Browns fan, I'm like, these guys always draft a receiver in day 2, and it's always like when they do that, I pay attention.
I know.
So it's crazy, especially that they moved on from Deontay.
Yeah, I have Rome. I have Rome low. I got Malachi Corley as my next guy up after Jermain Burton, after Blake Corum.
Okay.
Malachi Corley's cool. I think he's more of like a highlight player. I think he'll be a good, and like the Jets are going to love him. He's like a Deebo Samuel type player. He's not
for sure
anywhere near as good as Deebo is. Almost all of his production just came from screens behind the line of scrimmage. I think making the transition into the NFL when that's like 99% of what you saw at the college level, you didn't see a lot of press, you didn't see a ton of man. You're like his zone guy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was actually surprised at how good his success rate was versus zone from Matt Harmon.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised just because, like, those types of athletes, that's what they do. They're not, like, technically sound, but they're just good at, like, getting open for the most part, especially against zone. So, like, Corley, I don't really know. I mean, maybe he could be like what Randall Cobb was to Rodgers a bunch of years ago.
Ooh,
so maybe there's something there. I just think most people are going to love, like, the highlights of Corley more than what Corley can actually bring to the NFL field. So I'm hesitant on him, but he is my next wide receiver up after Burton. McMillan, he goes to Tampa Bay. Godwin's obviously there. Yeah, Rome, obviously the only thing that was like eye-opening was him going to Pittsburgh. And I'm like, fuck, they don't really miss with day 2s.
That was like, that's what made that one crazy to me. McMillan is a guy that the more I watched a few of the games because McMillan to me and has looked good at certain times on film. The more I watched, I hate this landing spot, man. I hate it for him. Like
Jalen,
I really didn't like seeing that. Like if you
really
if Jalen McMillan went to Pittsburgh for the record, I'd be going crazy right now.
I would like it too. Dude, Tampa Bay has just been a place where Evans obviously drafted 10 years ago. Godwin, 7 years ago. Since the Godwin draft pick, the wide receivers. Like, Tampa has just been a place to die for rookie wide receivers. They keep trying to draft these guys.
And then, like, to me, the other thing is we saw some stuff from Trey Palmer. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah, like Trey. The landing spot's extremely uninspiring. He's a dude that, like, all right, if he falls to me at the fucking 303, 304, whatever, but
I think that's actually like where I'm
definitely not trying to get
at
up
303. There. And Luke McCaffrey to me, I don't know. I'm kind of uninspired, honestly. For McCaffrey.
Same.
I'm not that. How about Tip Reiman, man?
I've never heard that name prior to today. Last night.
Neither did most of us.
I think he's just a blocking tight end, no?
Can I tell you the crazy part is he ain't. This is a guy that this is a upside swing of a receiver.
Really?
Brother, in his so I mean, obviously the first thing I do is, like, when I got off the stream, I wanted to go to bed, but I'm like, all right, what the fuck is Tip Reiman?
Facts.
I'm like, so I started.
That might have been the most, like, uttered phrase.
The whole rest of the draft.
Either last night or this morning. Who the fuck is Tip Reiman?
Everyone just keeps saying on the draft stream, just the tip for the rest of the thing.
Hilarious. Huh?
But, like, dude, Illinois. This guy is 6'7".
No, he's 6'3".
I'm sorry, 271. I'm
243.
No, player profile has got to be off. I swore I just saw he was 271. Go look at the Raz. Yeah. 6'4", 271 is what his Raz profile says.
What the hell?
I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. I swore I saw that, though. I'm looking at a couple of them.
If you go on Illinois website, which is certainly not official, anyone could just write anything, 6'5", 270.
I think, dude, because here's the thing. I watched a couple. Now, first of all, there's not much production to watch. Okay, the guy has 41 catches in 3 years, 19 each of the last 2. But one thing I noticed, they're lining him up in the slot. He's lining up as a receiver.
Is he good? Is he any good? This feels like who was that dude? You remember last year there was I think there was a kid out of Penn State, or no, Kutztown. Do you remember him? And he went to the Jets as like Zach Kuntz. Okay,
Kuntz.
Maybe not Kuntz. Maybe not Kutztown. Maybe that Zach Kuntz. Yeah, Zach Kuntz. Did he go? He was Penn State.
Yeah, he went to the Jets. Yep.
Okay, that was a guy who I think he graded out as at the combine as literally like the most athletic tight end of all time. You just had to turn the tape on for about 5 seconds to know that he's like not actually a good player, and all the numbers back that up.
Yes.
Is that this, but doing it in the 3rd round?
Well, I guess here's my thing, right? Zach Kuntz was, I believe, if I remember, he was like 7th round pick, or yeah, 7. He was picked 220. We're almost out of the draft. Like, first of all, this draft capital, Arizona clearly this to me says like they are wanting to shoot their shot on this.
That's crazy, especially with Trey McBride already
that's
there.
The other thing is like, all right, you assume, because logic would say, all right, you got Trey McBride, you've got to do it all tight end. What are we doing?
Yeah.
This is crazy to me.
That's a weird pick to me.
It's a very weird one. I'm not trying to like act like this is something that we should be moving things giantly on, but I will say
he's my last ranked guy on all the guys.
To the point you're asking, is he good? It's really hard for me to say. What I watched was a guy that was fluid for two. He's 270. He's running in the slot, and he's actually fluid. Now, I'll be honest. I would not expect him to come in and ever rival Trey McBride for a bunch of targets. Like, he's not, no, but I think it's just intriguing that is the tight end name coming this high off the board when there was a lot of tight end, like Jatavian Sanders didn't get taken. Cade Stover didn't get taken. There's so many guys. I'm like, what is going on?
Ben Sinnott did get taken, though.
Ben Sinnott.
2nd rounder, 2nd tight end off the board to Washington. Again,
for sure.
That's a clearly like open spot for someone to take the tight end role.
Facts.
That was Andrew's guy. He loved Ben Sinnott.
For sure. Talk your shit, Andrew. Jaden Daniels they're trying for Jaden.
They're certainly trying.
I'll be curious to see what he does. He's another very hyper athletic guy. I don't love Luke McCaffrey, but man,
I'm not a fan. That feel like a locker room like culture pick. You know what I mean? Like, let's get fucking bloodlines here. Yeah.
We want
also, I really have no problem if you're going to take a shot on Christian McCaffrey's little brother. That's like just for the sake of. I mean, you see the clips of C-Mac talking about like his work ethic and like what they did. Like, Luke's doing the same shit.
Yeah.
So like he's only going to get better and better probably.
I would imagine so. The problem Ben Sinnott for me is just such a value given that I think you can get him in the 3rd round. I'm not touching him until the 3rd round. And if I take Ben Sinnott in the early 3rd, I'm like, all right, hyper athletic tight end with this type of draft capital, we'll take it for
That's
sure.
where I think I had him too. So again, my rankings only updated for
I got Ben Sinnott at the 302, right behind Jermain Burton.
I have him at the 303. So I have starting in the 3rd round. My 301 is Jalen McMillan. My 302 is Roman Wilson. My 303 is Ben Sinnott. 304 is Luke McCaffrey. 305 is Mr. Tip.
Tip by default.
Just the tippy. Yeah, I'd imagine he's going to continue to slide down my rankings as more players get slotted in there.
No question. I will say, can I tell you, to me, the most surprising name that's still out there is Troy
Franklin. Yeah. I mean, it's surprising.
The fall, like every year there's someone that free falls. Kind of crazy to see him not go in the top 100 picks.
He feels like a guy that someone in front offices would absolutely fucking love.
To me, that's what's crazy. When you get to the 4th round here, that means everybody continues to pass.
Do you think – I'm trying to think of why. I don't really have a good reason. Do you think – I know his combine wasn't necessarily, like, underwhelming.
It's funny because the gauntlet for Keon and the gauntlet for Troy were, like, the polar opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I remember he really struggled at that. He was running, like, kind of zigzaggy, and it was slow.
And I mean the 42 because I think, like, Troy's best attribute was the fact that he was just a fucking blazer.
Right.
And
he's skinny.
And that was like, remember Jalen Hyatt last year? There was like remember early on in the process, Jalen Hyatt was like, he could sneak into the first. He drops into like the late 3rd to the Giants. But similar.
That's even the other crazy part. Like,
but Jalen Hyatt was kind of underwhelming at the 40-yard dash at the combine. It was like, it wasn't slow by any means. It was like low, 4.43 or 4.44. But they were talking as if he was going to run a 4.32 or something like that. And that kind of same energy with Troy Franklin, where that's like your best asset. But then you have dudes who that's not their best asset who are running faster than you, and they're getting drafted. You know what I mean? Like maybe there's something to it.
Fair. I think also too for Troy, this combine was a tough one to be at because everybody smacked the combine, and then you didn't.
I wonder if there's something else there. Is it just the combine?
I don't think there's Here's the thing.
To drop out of 3 rounds is weird.
Yeah, you going behind Luke McCaffrey, Roman Wilson, Jalen McMillan, Jermain Burton, Malachi. Like there's so many receivers taken. Yeah, it's not like all these NFL teams said they either didn't need receivers or they didn't like receivers in this class. They said you ain't it. Yeah. To me, that's crazy.
You know how many people are going to be like, oh, he's just the next Amon-Ra St. Brown getting drafted in the 4th?
I guess we have to talk about it if we're going to go there. Is there a place like if he lands early today? What can we have? What is your projection?
There's a place if he lands in like any sort of good situation. To be honest with you, I would be fine jumping him over all the fucking laundry at the bottom there.
Over Tip?
I don't know if I'd go that fucking far. Over Luke, over Roman, over McMillan, over Malachi Corley. I think I'd be fine slotting him in that like late 2nd round if he goes early 4th round to.
I'm going to pull up some
teams.
Yeah, let's pull up who's got the picks early here. Guts, Carolina Panthers, Seattle, New England.
New England, I'd be okay with.
New England also just Jalen Polk too. Jalen Polk feels like discount Lad McConkey to me.
Discount Lad McConkey.
Because if you think Drake May's good, if you believe in Drake May, Jalen Polk is going to be it.
Yeah.
Like there's no one there. Pop Douglas, Kendrick Bourne coming off the ACL.
Yeah.
But anyway, New England needs weapons bad.
Yeah, New England would be a sneaky okay spot
for Troy.
I wish New York took him instead of Malachi. I think Troy with Aaron Rodgers would have been a really cool pairing.
I could get behind that. You know what's interesting? You got the Chargers and the Patriots both here again. We talked about Ladd and Polk on the board.
I doubt they double dip the Chargers. The Chargers would be cool. Buffalo would be cool. New England would be relatively cool. What other landing spots could be good ones? The Rams would be kind of cool too. You know, and I was talking about like Brian Thomas could be like the complete unlock there. I think that would be a good spot.
The only thing about that would be they'd have to either trade back in. They don't have a single round 4 pick.
Okay.
They could though. I mean, I just think at this point, like Troy to me is someone that like I don't have the Nick eyes, but this is surprising enough for me to be very, very off of Troy. Yeah. Frankly.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't. Is that a pun right there?
It was. You like that?
That was not bad. Yeah, it caught me off a little bit. I was. I mean, I wasn't like super high on Troy. I was a little bit underwhelmed by like his tape when I watched him. I still think he's better than most of the guys that are going here. Troy Franklin honestly kind of feels like a Raven to me. They did just resign Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar, so it's probably unlikely, but he does. I think he'd be a cool fit there to be like their actual field stretcher. Like Zay's cool, but he's a volume guy. No one else in that offense really like stretches the field on the boundaries. And I think Troy would have been a cool fit there. Not that it'd be great for fantasy.
13th pick in the 4th round.
Okay,
bang,
that could work. They're a team that just gobbles up good players. They're like, we sit our pick, we get the best player available, and we build a good fucking team that way.
Sometimes I will say though, there's probably some spots where if he lands and it's early enough here, day 3, where I'm like, all right, maybe I kind of backtrack a little bit. I just think sometimes one of the hardest things for us to do as a community is we get so enamored. Troy Franklin. We have talked about Troy Franklin for so long, and now it's like we won't let go when the signs say to let go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's something that happens every year.
He was like a top, I feel like 4 or 5. There's some people that had him as like 4 or 5.
When I did the video, I said I was very iffy on him, but I was like, the community loves him. And that's why I was like, I can't put him outside of 4 when I did the video 2 months ago. Sometimes I think you got to say, all right, man, this is enough's enough with the free fall, especially given that I think there was like 16 receivers taken in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, it's not
That's
great.
A lot.
It's not great.
Anyone else that stands out to you here coming into this day 3?
I want to see where some of these running backs go. I want to see
Jalen Wright to me. I thought would definitely go in round. I guess I should say Let me rephrase. I was really hopeful he would go by round 3.
Yeah, Jalen Wright's one I'm definitely looking out on. Braylon Allen, I want to see where he goes.
Big time.
I'm even still kind of intrigued where Audric Estime goes. What are the wide receivers we got that are cool?
Troy Franklin's obviously the big name. Brendan Rice. Javon Baker I thought would go too.
Javon Baker's. I want him to go to Atlanta so fucking bad.
What about Malik Washington?
Cool player. I'm not super high on him. I think he could. I think he, for me, falls into like the Malachi Corley tier. Where
absolutely.
He's a little bit more above the line of scrimmage, but same kind of like build, same kind of play style, same kind of like get open in zone, make plays after the catch kind of thing where better player for your NFL team, I think, than ever going to be a fantasy player. But I think some team will like drafting him for sure.
I was I liked the fact that Tez Walker went to Kent State right around the corner from me, but like I was very cool on him, and he didn't go to a landing spot where I'm like, all right, the draft capital checks out. He's basically a one-trick pony that I think you can write him off now.
Tez is
Tez
ain't
over
it, for sure.
It's over.
Yeah, he ain't it. All right. Well, we got the draft. When does it kick off today? Noon?
Yeah.
Draft kicks off. We're finishing this up at 11:30 a.m. Day 3 of the NFL draft. You guys, this still needs to be edited, so you guys probably won't see this until like midway through the actual day 3 of the draft.
Yep.
But we'll do another video tomorrow as well, recapping anything fun that happens in day 3 of the draft, which will probably be a lot less, condensed like this, because who gives a fuck about round 4, 5, 6, 7, except for us. I care a little bit, I guess.
I mean, we give a little bit of a fuck, you know.
We do. We care. I don't know if there's a subset of the population that actually cares more about it than Dynasty people.
That's fair.
We're here for you.
There'll probably be a few picks that we have to talk about, but I think more than likely when we talk tomorrow, it'll just be a little more time to let everything settle.
Yeah.
I think overall takeaways, it's a good year to have draft picks.
Yeah, this is a great year to have second-round picks. Great year to have first-round picks. It's a great year to have picks.
The other thing, too, with I feel like we talk about this, and then when the draft happens, like 23 was supposed to be ridiculous. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, by 107, I don't really know what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like that's what normally happens. We're talking about legitimately names that we like with draft capital and landing spot in the late second round. You know what that's going to do to the third round? Like you're not going to be taking lottery tickets. You're going to be taking decent opportunity shots.
Brother, last year, Zach Charbonnet went at like the 111 in half of the drafts that I was in. If Zach Charbonnet was in this draft class and he went to Seattle in the second round,
he would not be.
He wouldn't be above Trey Benson for me.
No.
He wouldn't be above Jermain Burton for me. Like he would be the 21st overall pick probably in rookie drafts.
Yeah,
think about that.
He's more of a late second round pick for sure.
Yeah, and he was a late first round pick last year. So this is real. We're not just saying that because it's like, oh, the draft just happened, let's get excited. This year is fucking loaded. So if you got picks, use them. Use them at volume. Use them on these guys. We love you.
Facts.
We love you. We'll be back tomorrow. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Enjoy the rest of the draft.
Love y'all.